Can AI coach me? And how legit is it? We're going to find out today as I, a professional life coach, try out my own chatbot life coach. If you're new here, I'm your host, Ellen, a certified life coach, a singer, a mother, and a lover of alliteration, dogs, and deep conversation. And this is the Contentment Creator Podcast, the show designed especially for creative entrepreneurs to dig deep to clarify your life vision, catalyze your creative flow, and fuel your entrepreneurial fire. So, if you're interested in topics about personal development and healing, entrepreneurship and empowerment, and creativity and authenticity, please subscribe for more. Now, let's get into this. I am excited. So, I recently learned how to program my own chatbot coach in ChatGPT by training it in my professional core competencies, as well as my own personal style as a coach. And I've been extremely curious to try it out. Of course, we've all heard the battle cry from all industries about the impact of AI going on, how it's going to have an impact on all our jobs. And coaches across my industry frequently discuss the threat of AI and the missing humanity from such a tool. But it's my personal belief that, like with all change, the less you resist what is outside of your control and the more flexible and curious you become about it, the more opportunity there is to grow with it and not in spite of it. So I just really want to try this thing out and see if it can really coach me through some struggles I'm having right now. So let's see how it goes. In today's episode, I'm going to share 4 coaching requests. In other words, 4 things that I've been struggling with in different areas of my personal life, including my inner world, my marriage, my parenthood, and my business. And I want to see how it coaches me. So you'll get real-time responses that I get from the bot and how helpful it is to me in the moment. And I also want to share my reaction and feedback to the overall quality of the coaching that it's providing me. And just as a disclaimer, after filming these coaching conversations with my chatbot, I will be programming all of my feedback into the bot itself to improve it. So what you're going to see today is the beta product. And if you like this kind of content, let me know, and I can film another episode using the updated programming to see if it gets better as a coach. And if you'd like to try out this chatbot for yourself, I will include the free link to access it in the description box. Okay, let's stop talking and start coaching. I don't know what to do with my life or business. When I don't work, I feel purposeless. When I work, I miss my children. I don't get nourishing rest. I feel tired and depleted most of the time. I feel like my creative well is pretty dry, but I am accustomed to pushing through anyway. I don't know what to do from here. All right, the first response. What I hear in what you shared is not confusion so much as tension between several values that all deeply matter to you: purpose and contribution, presence with your children, creative expression, rest and vitality. Hang on. If you're just listening and you're not looking at the YouTube video, first of all, I would direct you to come to the YouTube video because you can read what I'm writing and receiving from the chatbot. And it'll be a lot clearer than me just reading everything, but I am scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and this thing has written a book to me. So I need to do a little training in the moment to it. So I want to have a conversation with you, not read all this information, because ain't nobody got time for that. That's overwhelming and not helpful. Ask me one powerful question for me to answer next. Then ask me one question at a time that drives open, new insight and awareness for me. All right, it said, thank you for saying that. Let's slow this way down one question at a time. I'll stay curious with you. Here's the first one. When you imagine a day where you feel truly alive and nourished, not productive, not impressive, not deeply well. Not productive, not impressive, but deeply well. What is happening in that day? Take your time. What does that day actually look like? Okay. First impressions. I like this question. It gets me out of the past and problem mode of like witnessing what I don't want, and it instead is shifting the perspective to what I do want. So not bad. Let's go ahead and answer it. It looks like waking up well rested, taking Grace to school with Matt and Moxie and enjoying a coffee or treat together, getting ready for the day, working on my podcast, with flow and interest in my topic, getting a few solid hours of work done in time to greet Grace when she gets home from school, or picking her up myself, then eating a delicious and nutritious lunch with Grace and Matt while Moxie is napping. Then doing a creative project like painting, playing guitar, scrapbooking, then rest and maybe head to a dance class or gym workout in time to be home by 4:30 when Grace and Moxie are finished playing with our nanny. Then the girls independently play happily while Matt and I hang out in the kitchen while he cooks and we talk lightheartedly. The girls get ready for bed and go to bed easily by 7:30. Then Matt and I connect until 9 and I go to sleep quick. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a glorious day. Thank you for painting that so vividly. I can almost feel the rhythm of that day. It has flow, creativity, family connection, and spaciousness in it. Nothing about it sounded frantic or overextended. So here's the next question. Which part of that day feels furthest away from your current reality right now? Okay, so what it's doing is establishing a gap, although it's a little surface level in my opinion. One thing that I noticed right off the bat is that one of the key skills and requirements of a coaching conversation is to establish a coaching request or a coaching agreement between the coach and the client. And what that basically does is sets everybody up for success. We know the goal of the conversation. We know what topic we're discussing. We know what's in the way. We know what the measure of success is for the client of like what they really want to walk away with. And we know the meaning of this in the greater perspective, in the big picture of their life. We don't want to just have an isolated conversation that kind of moves some pieces around, but doesn't really make a transformational shift for them. And right now, I'm expecting this to be just move some pieces around, surface level conversation based on the fact that it doesn't really know what I want out of this conversation. And these first couple of questions are kind of staying within the content of the topic and not something higher level. So that's feedback so far, but I will go ahead and answer this question. So which part of my day feels furthest away from my current reality right now? My restedness from the night is erratic. My well feels dry when I think of work stuff. I feel exhausted hanging out with my kids, especially if they are dysregulated. I just kind of want to be alone, sleep, and not be bothered right now. But then I feel guilty, lonely, and lazy. It responded, "Thank you for saying that honestly. There's a lot of self-awareness in what you just shared." Here's the next question. When you notice, I'm not a fan of the whole here's the next question, like you don't really need to say that. When you notice the moment where you just want to be alone, sleep, and not be bothered, what do you believe that feeling is actually asking from you? Okay, so this is towing the line of somatic awareness, which I appreciate. It's helping me connect more to my body and get curious about the need the feeling I'm having is actually communicating. So nice work, AI. Okay, so it could be the need to take a nap or slow down, not scroll or try to work when I'm tired, or journal question mark. That's insightful. These responses are so generic. You named slowing down, sleep, and journaling, all things that restore rather than produce. Here's the next question. When that need for rest or journaling shows up, what usually stops you from actually honoring it in that moment? Again, good job establishing the gap, like what's in the way of me having this thing that I want. The responses before these questions are just inane and robotic. So this is where AI definitely falls short because it's not listening to you. It's responding with a formula and like, that's great. That's insightful. That's honest. It's not really a person. So it's just mimicking compassionate listening. Okay, so then it asks, when that need for rest or journaling shows up, what usually stops you from actually honoring it in that moment? Okay, so feeling like that's not useful or a part of the plan I had for myself. That's really honest. Thank you for naming that. Here's the next question. Who created the plan you feel like you're supposed to follow? And what was that version of you hoping life would feel like by following it? That is a banger question. Yesterday me, or a me from before 2 kids. I keep thinking I can optimize my time and do it all because when I'm creatively fulfilled, I'm a better mom. But when I feel creatively frustrated, I'm also a frustrated mom. So neither side of me feels good when I'm depleted. But I just don't choose to journal and take time to rest. Parentheses, not just numb by binge watching a show in bed. That's a really important awareness you just named. Okay, so it's giving me some actual reflections right now. You're not just choosing rest that restores, you're choosing collapse that numbs. And underneath that is a part of you that still believes you should be able to run the plan created by a different version of you. So here's the next question. What do you think that earlier version of you didn't understand yet about the energetic reality of having 2 young children? Solid follow-up. That my needs change based on how much I'm giving to my kids and family. And sometimes I neglect my own needs, leaving me exhausted and uninspired. That's a really compassionate realization towards yourself. You're recognizing that your energy isn't fixed anymore. It's relational. It changes based on how much you're giving. So here's the next question. If your energy now moves in waves depending on what your kids and family need from you, what might change if your expectations for yourself moved in waves too, instead of saying fixed? Okay, I'll play. Then I fear I will be inconsistent and neglect my creative desires. That fear makes a lot of sense. It sounds like there's a part of you that believes consistency is the only thing protecting your creativity from disappearing. So here's the next question. Have there been seasons in your life where you stepped away from creativity for a while and it eventually came back to you? What was that like? Okay, so a past-based question, which is typically not the direction we're facing in coaching. Typically, it's a forward-focused conversation. But honestly, this is supportive in this instance because it can give me an idea of where I've been here before and what I did that time. Okay. So, yes, it was because I was healing from trauma and childbirth, my first one. I gave myself permission to experience quote unquote slow living, to relish true self care and breastfeeding and rest as quote productive. But I associate that time as dark and not full of light. That's a meaningful distinction you just made. You experienced permission to slow down, but the season itself also held darkness. So part of you may have linked the two together, as if slowing down also means entering a dim or heavy place. Solid reflection. So here's the question. What do you imagine would be different if you allowed yourself a slower season now, but intentionally filled it with things that feel light, nourishing, and life-giving instead of dark? I like that it's inviting me out of black and white thinking where I'm either slow and dark or fast and light. It's basically asking, like, what would life from slow and light look like? I like that. So my answer is I wouldn't hold myself to expectations of output. That's an important realization. I'm going to have to program these auto responses out because I am not a fan. So here's the next question. I'm also going to edit that out. If you temporarily released the expectation of output, what would you want your life to be about during this season instead? Great question. No notes. healing, creating, connecting, and strengthening my body. That's a beautiful set of priorities. Healing, creating, connecting, strengthening your body. So here's the next question. Which of these 4 feels like the foundation that would make the others easier to access again? Interesting take. It's having me choose the first step that requires the least amount of lift from me, which would then create a domino of new actions. So appreciate that. I think it's connecting to myself. That feels like a very clear signal. Here's the next question. When you think about connecting to yourself, what are the moments or activities where you feel that connection most easily right now? Yeah, I feel like we're getting a little bit in the weeds right now. So I'm going to tell it that I'm ready to wrap up and go ahead and get some clear action steps named. I think connecting to myself looks like meeting my needs, like resting when I'm tired, reflecting and journaling when I'm unsure what I need, creating when there's something in my cup, and working out again to aid my physical recovery and strength goals. That sounds like a really grounded place to land. You didn't just name abstract ideas, you identified very concrete signals of self-connection. Rest when you're tired, reflect and journal when you're unclear, create when something is actually in your cup, and strengthen your body through movement. Notice something important about what you just said. None of those require you to force inspiration. They require you to respond to what's actually happening inside you. That's a very different operating system than optimize your time and push through. Fair point. Before we close, I'll offer one final reflection rather than another question. Earlier, you said you feared that loosening expectations would make you inconsistent and neglect your creativity. What emerged in this conversation suggests something else. Okay. Your creativity doesn't disappear when you slow down. It disappears when you're depleted and overriding your needs. Preach. The practices you named, rest, reflection, movement, and creating when something is already there, are not stepping away from your creativity. They're rebuilding the conditions that make creativity possible again. And something else I noticed about the day you described earlier, your dream day wasn't about massive output, it was about rhythm. Work, connection, creation, movement, rest. That rhythm may simply need to become more responsive and seasonal right now. Not abandoned, just softened. So here's the thought I'll leave you with. Instead of asking, how do I keep producing while I feel depleted? You might experiment with asking, how do I rebuild a life where my energy and creativity naturally return? You already named the first steps toward that. And honestly, the clarity you reached in this conversation suggests your inner compass is still very much working. That's nice. Okay, so let me give you my honest take. I didn't get much out of this conversation. And to be fair, I could have kept this going. Like there was opportunity for me to continue answering its questions and see where it took me. It helped me feel a little better and it shifted my thinking slightly, but too much talking on the coach's part. And the conversation just truly stayed very surface level. I'm interested to see that once I finish today's coaching sessions, what clearer programming from me would actually change the responses and questions, and if AI is really capable of going much deeper to the root of true life coaching and not just facilitating a couple of new action steps. So overall, there's room to grow. I did get something out of this conversation. It kind of helped me verbalize and verbally process what I was working through in my head. So it's definitely not without value, but it's also not the value of a life coach at all. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Let me dump my thoughts into the chat and see what happens. Okay, thank you. I'd like to start a new coaching conversation. This time, I'd like to talk about my marriage. I've noticed that I'm looking for a lot of words of affirmation from him, reassurances, compliments, acknowledgement of my contributions in the household and to our family and to him. But when he says them, they fall flat inside me. It's like I'm not receiving them or they're not enough, even when he's saying the things I need to hear. What is going on with me? Let's see what it says. What you're describing is actually a really important and common inner experience in long-term relationships. The key signal in what you said is you want the words, but when they arrive, they don't land. Okay, so first off the bat, I'm going to interrupt this response and say the ironic thing is it's giving me words of affirmation right off the bat. So maybe it's reading into what I'm saying by giving me affirmation, but it's a little bit too much talking for my personal preference. Anyway, let's move on. That usually means the issue isn't actually the amount of affirmation. It's something happening inside the receiving system. True. There are a few possibilities we can explore here, but instead of me diagnosing it, let's stay in the coaching frame you asked for and uncover it from your own awareness. Thank you. Here's the first question. When he gives you the affirmation you were hoping for, what is the very first thought that flashes through your mind? It might be subtle or quick. Something like, he's just saying that because he asked, he doesn't really mean it, it's not enough. Why didn't you notice this earlier? What tends to appear there for you? Interesting. Okay, so if you saw the previous clip where it coached me about fulfilling my creative cup, I mentioned that all coaching conversations need to start by establishing the goal of the client, which again, it does not do here, probably because I didn't program it adequately enough. So I will be adding that in after this episode, but I wanted to mention it in case you're watching this clip by itself. This question just jumps right into the content of the conversation. And what I appreciate about it is that it's asking about my unconscious response, which is really helpful awareness building. So we'll go with that. Some version of he's just saying that because I asked, or he doesn't really mean it, depending on if it's acknowledging my accomplishments for the day or week, or if he's complimenting me or saying, I love you out of the blue. That's a really honest observation. The moment you said that, something important became visible. The affirmation is arriving, but your mind is disqualifying it before it can land. So let's get curious about the part of you that does that. Here's the next question. If his words were completely genuine and fully true, if there were zero doubt about that, what would it feel like inside you to actually let them in? I like that somatic question. I feel like it's connecting me to my body and putting me in future-oriented thinking. So I think it would feel like I have to pause for like 10 plus seconds to actually look into his eyes, play back the tape in my head, so to speak, and wait for them to sink in. Like I'd have to wait for that inner rejection to pass and then let them in. But who has the time for that? That's a really revealing answer. You didn't say, I can't receive it. You said, I would need time to let it in, which means the problem may not be disbelief alone. It may be speed. Your nervous system and your mind are moving quickly through the moment, and the affirmation needs slowness to actually register. Instead, the brain inserts a shortcut thought. He's just saying that. So let's explore that layer deeper. Here's the next question. If you did pause those 10 seconds and let the affirmation fully land, what part of you might feel vulnerable or exposed? Interesting, because it's trying to lead me somewhere by telling me that a part of me feels vulnerable and exposed, which is not skilled coaching. You never want to put words in someone's mouth or prescribe someone else's experience if they didn't explicitly say that that was their experience. I get what it's trying to do in saying that I'm protecting myself for some reason, and it's asking what might that reason be, but the way that it went about it was very leading, so not a fan. But I will go with it. My heart. I feel like that's the right answer, so that's just what I'm saying. If I let it in and truly believed his words, I might feel more vulnerable than I already feel right now. That makes a lot of sense. You just named something very precise. If you let the words in, your heart becomes more exposed. Okay, so this is just very surface level. I'm not getting anything out of that little line of questioning right now. So we'll see where this goes. Right now, there's a protective reflex that says, don't fully believe it, because if you believe it, the emotional stakes go up. So let's get curious about that protection instead of trying to get rid of it. Here's the next question. What do you think that protective part of you is trying to prevent from happening if you fully believe his love and admiration? Okay, so this is the question that it should have asked previously. Instead of telling me that a part of me feels vulnerable, this is a much better question to say, what is that protective part of you trying to prevent from happening? Solid. Okay, we got there eventually. I think since we've had our second baby, it's been more difficult to connect and really be with each other. We spend all of our days working together as a co-parenting team that when it comes to downtime together, I'm looking to him for comfort and connection and love. And I'm often quite direct in asking for it. But then when he says it, I haven't put the get shit done mode that protects me or holds me together through the day down. And I'm, quote, non-reactive like I am with my kids, who are a three-nager and an infant. That's a really sharp piece of self-awareness you just articulated. You're describing something many parents fall into after a second baby. The operating system that gets you through the day is still running when intimacy shows up. Okay, so just an initial take, there's a lot of words here, so I will read what it says, but again, don't love when a coach talks more than the client. All day, you're in a mode that sounds like regulate the kids, solve the problems, keep the house running, move things forward, stay emotionally steady, even when others are dysregulated. That mode is incredibly useful for parenting, but it has one side effect. It dampens emotional responsiveness. It's designed to keep things functional, not tender. So when your husband offers love or affirmation, it's almost like your nervous system is still in project manager / emotional regulator mode, not partner receiving love mode. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just still armored for the day. Fair assessment. The result is exactly what you described. You long for connection, you ask for it directly, he gives it. Your nervous system is still in non-reactive mode, so you can't absorb it, and your brain fills the gap with, he's just saying that. The words aren't bouncing off because they're fake. They're bouncing off because the armor hasn't come off yet. Let's keep exploring together. Here's the next question. At what moment in your day do you feel that get shit done / holding everything together mode starts to soften even a little bit? It may be late at night during workout, journaling, a shower, or quiet moment alone. Where do you notice that protective mode begin to loosen? Okay, so just a piece of coaching feedback. This is called stacking. When you ask a really good question, like it said, at what moment in your day does that protection mode or the armor soften? But then it provides almost like the multiple choice options right after it, and then it reiterates the question in a new form. Humans do this, so this is not surprising that it does it, but it's just a lot for the client to be with. When it asks a question, then kind of almost pseudo answers it and asks you another question, it's just kind of too much. So again, more feedback that I will be adding to the bot later. But back to its question, I really appreciate that it's drawing my awareness to, again, something I already know how to do because it's pointing me to a moment in my day that I already practice this, but I'm just not aware that I'm doing it. Okay. It's usually when I slow down to journal or talk with someone, like a friend or him, about what's going on with me. I think writing things down is the easiest way for me to lower the barrier first. But sometimes I don't have time to sit down and journal before talking to him and going to sleep. That's really insightful, and it tells us something important about how your nervous system processes emotion. You don't shift from operational mode to relational mode instantly. You process your way there. And journaling works because it does three things for you. It slows your mind down, it organizes what you're feeling, and it helps you arrive emotionally before someone else meets you there. So when you talk to him without that transition, part of you is still mid-process. You're asking for connection while your system is still crossing the bridge toward connection. Nothing about that means the love isn't real or that you're incapable of receiving it. It just means your system benefits from a small transition ritual. Fair. But instead of jumping to solutions, let's stay curious for one more layer. Okay. Here's the next question. When you imagine letting him see you before you've processed yourself, messy, unsure, mid-thought, what feeling comes up for you? Not a logical answer, the first emotional one. This question doesn't land for me, so I'm going to redirect it. I'm open to letting him see me mid-process. But again, that takes time and unpacking. Sometimes my husband doesn't have the capacity to listen to me process my day fully. I think the conversations are more impactful and nourishing when I've already done some processing. So then, instead of telling him a blow by blow of all the feelings or things I was thinking that day, and he's left with 1,000 words and no clear conclusion, he doesn't know the quote right thing to say. But when I've done that verbal processing already, then I can say I experienced blank, these emotions, because blank. I need blank right now. It's way clearer and easier to receive on his part. But who has the time to do all of that between bedtime routines and cleaning up the house and getting ready for bed? We're back here again. What you're describing actually sounds very coherent, not confusing. You've identified a real dynamic. You process internally first, writing and organizing your thoughts, and then you communicate clearly. Then the connection feels nourishing. Without that first step, the connection becomes unstructured emotional processing, which is harder for him to respond to and harder for you to feel satisfied by. So the real tension you're naming isn't just about affirmation, it's this. You need a small amount of personal processing time to show up relationally, but the season of life you're in just doesn't easily provide it. 2 young kids compress everything. By the time the house is quiet, you're both depleted. True. So instead of trying to solve the logistics immediately, I want to zoom in on something deeper that you said earlier. But who has the time for that? I'm glad it did because I think I repeated that twice in an answer, so I'm glad that it picked up on that. Here's the next coaching question. If you gave yourself even 3 minutes of intentional processing before connecting with him at night, what do you imagine might change in how you receive him? That's actually really helpful. I like that it directed me with 3 minutes because that's actually super doable and I think it will help me. I think it would make a big difference. At first, 3 minutes sounds like nothing. I would never think doing something for 3 minutes would be enough to accomplish anything. But when I really consider it, taking those 3 minutes to type it out in my journal or break it down with you in this thread would really just open the doors to receiving, even if I don't arrive at any clear conclusions or requests. That's a really meaningful realization. You just discovered something subtle but powerful. You don't actually need a resolution to connect with him. You needed a small doorway into your inner world. Okay, this is a lengthy response, just FYI. Those 3 minutes aren't about figuring everything out. They're about softening the armor you described earlier, shifting out of get shit done mode and back into human with a heart mode. Right now, your brain thinks the options are fully process everything, long journaling, clarity, conclusions, or skip processing entirely and try to connect anyway. Black and white thinking. But what you just identified is a third option, a tiny transition that simply opens the emotional door. And that makes a lot of sense for someone like you. You're reflective, thoughtful, and you metabolize your experiences through language and meaning. 3 minutes of writing or naming what's happening inside you gives your system a bridge from parenting mode to partnership mode. The beautiful thing is you already proved it to yourself in this conversation. You didn't spend 30 minutes analyzing your day. You just named a few truths and you can already feel the shifts. So before we end this round of coaching, I want to ask you one last reflective question to anchor this insight. What might it look like to treat those 3 minutes not as, quote, another task, but as the moment you internally transition from mother managing the world back to woman connecting with her partner? Take your time with that one. Again, this feels like it's telling me about myself. In general, what I'm noticing is that if I were the coach in this scenario, I pretty much immediately would have picked up on the fact that if this client were having a hard time connecting with her spouse, it's probably because she's not connecting with herself. So we could have skipped most of these questions and gotten straight to that if I were coaching this person. But hey, I'll tell it what's up now. Honestly, I think it's more woman connecting with herself first and foremost. Then I can open the door to my partner, to my inner world. That's a really important correction. And that's exactly what this was. This was kind of a correction of the coach. So we'll see. You didn't say the transition is mother to wife. You said it's mother to yourself to partner. And that middle step is the one that was missing, has been missing. All day, your attention is outward: kids' needs, household logistics, emotional regulation for everyone else, partnership, and teamwork. By the time night comes, you're asking your husband for connection before you've reconnected with yourself. Truth. So when he offers affirmation, there's nowhere for it to land yet. Your inner world hasn't reopened. That's why the world feels flat. Not because they're insecure, not because you're needy, not because there's something wrong with your marriage, but because your inner receiver hasn't come back online yet. Those 3 minutes you described are essentially a re-entry into yourself. And once that happens, two things change. You soften internally, so affection and affirmation can land, and you communicate more clearly, which makes it easier for him to respond in ways that actually nourish you. So the real practice isn't getting more affirmation from him. It's closer to return to myself before I try to be met by someone else, which honestly is a pretty profound relational skill, especially in this season of life that you're in with a 3-year-old and a baby. Before we close this conversation, I'm curious about one last thing. What do you think your husband would notice about you if you took those 3 minutes to reconnect with yourself before you turned toward him? I don't care what he'd notice about me. This is why setting up a coaching agreement is so important, because it avoids this kind of scenario of asking questions that really don't lead me towards my internal goal, which turns out was, how do I connect to myself so that I can allow connection with others? I like the practice that it offered me of journaling for 3 minutes about my day before connecting with my husband. But again, just like the previous coaching requests, this one is a little bit surface level and superficial. But processing is processing, and to an everyday human, having this conversation would help move them forward with some new awareness and action, which is a win. I will be practicing those 3 minutes tonight. I'm ready to wrap up. I think he would notice more vulnerability, and he might feel less overwhelmed by my verbal processing and know more clearly what I need to hear. That sounds like a really clear and grounded place to land. Oh gosh, it says a whole lot of stuff that honestly I don't want to read to you. If you want to read it, check out the YouTube video. I'll scroll through it and you can check it out. But it's reiterating everything we just went over. Overall, I am excited to program the feedback I am gathering through this video about establishing a coaching request and ultimately like introducing it to my personal approach of asking deeper, more profound questions that challenge a client's thinking as a whole, rather than just kind of shuffling pieces around until a couple of puzzle pieces click together and then the conversation's over. I wonder genuinely if an AI life coach chatbot is capable of really great coaching, but for now, this is very basic level facilitative coaching that I think provides value to anyone who just needs a little nudge. But I am curious to know from you, what did you think of this AI coach? What about the questions, about the reflections, about the overall direction of the conversation? Did you agree with my feedback? And if you use the link in my description box, did you have a better experience now that I've programmed it? I'm very eager to hear about what your experience is, so please do comment below. Let me dump my thoughts into the chat and see what happens. Thank you. This was helpful. Now I'd like a new coaching conversation about parenthood. I have a daughter who just turned 3, who is in her full-blown three-nager-hood. I also have a 6-month-old daughter who just started sleeping through the night and is starting to crawl. I started back at work part-time the last couple of months, and I feel like ever since I've come back to work, it's taken more out of my tank than I have to give. So then when I'm around my kids, I feel very depleted. My capacity is low, and when my kids are dysregulated, it drains my tank quickly. What are some ways I can increase my capacity to meet my kids' needs? I don't just want to talk about slowing down and taking care of myself. I'm looking for how can I stay connected to my kids when my patience is at 0 and I'm too tired to, quote, conscious parent them. What you're describing is an incredibly common collision of 2 developmental storms happening at once. Okay, just initial take, it's doing that thing again where it's explaining a lot to me rather than just jumping into a coaching conversation. So there we go again. Again, just the nature of me not training it sufficiently, which I will do. A 3-year-old nervous system learning autonomy with big feelings and low regulation, a 6-month-old entering mobility, constant vigilance and stimulation, and a parent re-entering workforce while still postpartum. So the question you're asking is a powerful one. How do I stay connected to my kids while my capacity is basically zero? Let's approach this like a coaching conversation rather than a lecture. Please. First, I want to anchor something important. Connection with kids does not require emotional perfection. In fact, most secure attachment is built through repair, not flawless regulation. Yes. But instead of unpacking a bunch of theory, let's start with a question that helps us target the right strategies. Thank you. Think about the moments when your patience drops to zero. What tends to be happening right before that point? Is it more often A, noise/chaos overload, B, defiance from your 3-year-old, C, both kids needing you at the same time, D, transitions like bedtime, leaving the house, and meals, or E, something else entirely? Which situation drains you the fastest? So again, I feel like it's interesting that it gives me multiple choice in this way. Like I said in previous coaching sessions this week, this feels prescriptive and it's giving me a certain set of options of what could be going through my head or could be what's going on, but it's not just letting me answer with an open-ended question. So that might be helpful for someone who doesn't have a ton of self-awareness yet to identify with one or more of those options. But for me, I don't know, it's a little off-putting, but I'll go with what they said. So I think the thing that drains me the fastest is B, defiance from my 3-year-old. That makes a lot of sense. Defiance from a 3-year-old is one of the most neurologically triggering parenting experiences, especially when you're depleted. It hits several pressure points at once. It slows everything down when you're already tired. It feels like a power struggle that you have to win. It often comes with whining, yelling, or ignoring, and you're simultaneously caring for a baby. So let's focus specifically on how to stay connected when defiance is happening and your patience is gone. But before I offer strategies, I want to ask one coaching question that will reveal a lot. When your daughter is being defiant, what meaning does your mind tend to assign to it in that moment? For example, parents often think things like, she's not listening to me, she's being disrespectful, she's pushing my limits, she's trying to control things, she knows better than this. What is the automatic interpretation your brain tends to make in these moments? Okay, so again, lots of talking, lots of explaining. In some ways, it's obviously very validating, but as a general rule in life coaching, if you're talking more than the client is, then you're doing it wrong. You really want to be selective with when you offer reflections for the most crucial awareness building moments. And most of the time, ask really powerful, open-ended questions for the client to do a lot of the lifting and the work so that it goes deeper than the coach might know how to go. So that it goes deeper because then the client is leading inwardly. It's a decent question about this automatic interpretation because it's directing me again towards unconscious thoughts to bringing them into my conscious mind. So not bad. I would say some combination of she's not listening to me or she's trying to control things. That's a really important insight. The moment your brain interprets her behavior as she's not listening or she's trying to control things, the interaction instantly becomes a power struggle in your nervous system. And power struggles are incredibly draining, especially when you're already depleted. What's happening neurologically is this. Your daughter is in a developmental stage where she's experimenting with agency and autonomy, but your brain hears it as opposition. When opposition is detected, your nervous system shifts into control mode, which burns a ton of energy. So one of the most powerful ways to increase your capacity isn't actually more patience. It's removing the power struggle frame so your nervous system doesn't go into battle. Let's explore this practically. Here's the coaching question that would open up the next layer. When your daughter is defiant, what outcome are you usually trying to achieve in that moment? For example, immediate compliance, respectful tone, moving their routine along, cooperation, or something else. I appreciate this question, but I don't really feel like limiting to one outcome of this multiple choice is what I want. So I'm going to answer with multiple. So I'm going to say cooperation, respectful tone, or moving the routine along all come into play. That's helpful. Those 3 goals, cooperation, respectful tone, and moving the routine along, are all very reasonable, but here's the tension that quietly drains your capacity. With a 3-year-old, those 3 goals often cannot happen simultaneously. Fair point. At this age, their brain is still developing the parts responsible for impulse control, emotional regulation, flexible thinking, respectful tone when upset. So, when we try to get all 3 outcomes, we unknowingly enter negotiation that costs enormous energy. A big capacity shift comes from deciding which goals matter the most in the moment. Think of it like parenting with 3 gears instead of 1. Interesting. So, it's offering me a framework right now? Let's explore. Gear 1, move the routine along, which is for a low emotional energy state. When you're exhausted, the goal is simply forward motion. This might look like, I hear you don't want to put shoes on. I'm going to help your body do it. Calmly picking her up and doing the thing, and minimal discussion. You're not teaching tone or cooperation here. You are just keeping the train moving. Connection is maintained through calmness, not negotiation. Cool. Gear 2, practice cooperation when you have a little more capacity. This is where you invite participation. Do you want to hop to the bathroom or tiptoe? Should the red toothbrush go first or the blue one? You're making the routine a shared activity instead of a command. And 3, teach respectful tone in teaching moments, not meltdown moments. This happens later when everyone is regulated. For example, earlier when you were mad about shoes, your voice got very loud. When we're frustrated, we can say, I don't like that. Let's practice. Teaching tone during defiance almost always backfires because their brain is flooded. The capacity secret. When you're depleted, you're allowed to default to gear 1 most of the time. That's not failing conscious parenting. That's energy intelligent parenting. You're preserving your nervous system so that you can still be warm and connected later. And the connection piece is actually much simpler than people think. In chaotic seasons with little kids, connection is mostly built through physical closeness, warm tone, quick repairs after hard moments, not through perfect responses in every interaction. I'm curious about something that will help refine this further for you. When your daughter is being defiant, what response from you tends to escalate things the fastest? For example, repeating yourself, explaining why she needs to do something, raising your voice, trying to reason with her, something else. Which one tends to pour gasoline on the fire? Okay, I have several thoughts about this. So again, I feel like I'm a broken record with this, but it's a double-edged sword because the response was a ton of talking at me. It was not a coaching conversation. Life coaching is a very different process than consulting, for example, where the coach is responsible for asking powerful questions and the client is responsible for exploring themselves more deeply and discovering their own inner answers. This kind of talking at and telling is not life coaching. It's just facilitative consulting, essentially. On the other side, though, I really do like this framework and the tool that it's offering me. It's personally very relevant and resonant because I do find myself parenting on gears 2 and 3 when my capacity is at 0. And so I'm trying to invite her cooperation or I'm trying to, help her regulate and then have a teaching moment when I am completely drained, which is just like, it doesn't work well for me. It really runs me dry. So the idea of just moving the routine along calmly and reiterating what she's feeling or reflecting what she's doing, like, I hear you, I'm going to help your body do this, minimal discussion, just staying calm and not snapping or anything, I think is the most helpful tool that I got out of that reflection. So let's answer this question and we'll probably wrap up pretty soon. I don't raise my voice so much as my tone shifts and there's a sharpness to my tone. I speak more quickly and pointedly and a little louder, but not shouting. That awareness is a huge parenting skill. Many parents never notice the micro shift in tone that happens right before things escalate. What you're describing is the moment your nervous system goes from guiding to pushing. It sounds like this internally. Let's move this along. Okay, seriously, we need to go. Why is this so hard? Just do the thing. And your tone starts carrying urgency, which a 3-year-old nervous system reads as threat or pressure, not leadership. When they feel that pressure, they often dig in harder, which drains you even more. So the capacity question becomes, how do you keep connection while you're at 0 patients? Which is the question that I asked at the very beginning. Their answer is, not by being calmer, not by being more patient, but by lowering the amount of emotional work you're doing in the moment. Here are 3 tools that work well specifically when your tank is empty. Okay, so they're giving me more tools after already giving me a framework with the gears. I won't read all of this to you in the moment. You can go to the YouTube video and I will share the screenshot recording of it all. But the key points are use fewer words, leadership. Number 2 is externalize the routine. It's not a you versus her. Number 3 is repair quickly instead of trying to be perfect. And then one more thing that might shift your capacity dramatically is the goal in this season is not perfect conscious parenting. It's efficient leadership with warm repair. Before we wrap this conversation, I want to ask one more coaching question that often reveals a huge lever for parents in your exact stage. When during the day do you feel the most connected and patient with your 3-year-old right now? Not when things are easiest logistically, but when you actually enjoy her the most. I feel kind of done with this conversation, but I do have a question for it, so I'm going to ask it. I have a question. What about when I calmly move forward with the routine and she screams and hits and flails and wants to do it herself? That's a great and very real question. Every parent of a 3-year-old eventually hits this exact moment. You move things along calmly and suddenly you have a tiny protester flailing and screaming because she wanted autonomy. Nothing about that means you did something wrong. What you're seeing is a collision between 2 legitimate needs, your need to move the routine forward and her developmental need for agency. At 3, agency is extremely strong, but skills are still weak, so the frustration comes out as hitting, screaming, flailing. The key isn't preventing the meltdown. Often that's impossible. The key is holding the boundary while still preserving her sense of agency. Here's what that can look like in practice. 1, acknowledge the autonomy immediately. When kids say, I want to do it myself, the nervous system is really saying, my control has disappeared. A quick acknowledgement often softens the escalation. Example, you wanted to do it yourself. Not a lecture, just naming it. This communicates, I see you, even though the routine continues. 2, give autonomy inside the boundary. The boundary stays the same, but you return a piece of control. Example, we need shoes on. Do you want to push your foot in or should I help? You can climb into the seat or I can lift you. You can pull the zipper or I will. This shifts the dynamic from parent versus child to shared problem solving. 3, if she's flailing or hitting, move into calm containment. When a child is hitting, their brain is fully dysregulated. At that point, the goal changes from cooperation to safety. You might calmly hold her arms and body and say, I won't let you hit. Then continue the routine as best you can. Containment is not punishment, it's regulation support. Number 4, let the feelings happen without fixing them. This part is hard but powerful. A child can scream and still move through the routine. Example tone. You're really mad you didn't get to do it yourself. You keep moving. Parents often feel pressure to stop the crying, but that actually costs a ton of emotional energy. Sometimes the lowest energy path is simply allowing the protest. Number 5, repair the autonomy later. After the storm passes, you can circle back. Example, next time you want to do it yourself, you can say, I do it. This builds the skill she didn't have in the moment. A mindset shift that may help your capacity. When a 3-year-old yells, I do it myself, it's actually a healthy developmental signal. It means her independence is growing, her sense of competence is emerging, and her brain is practicing autonomy. Unfortunately, it comes packaged with terrible emotional regulation. Your job isn't to eliminate the explosion, it's to hold the boundary while allowing the emotion. That requires far less energy than trying to prevent the meltdown entirely. When she is in that flailing, screaming, I do it myself moment, what usually happens inside you? Is it more like A, another multiple choice, I feel overwhelmed and want it to stop immediately. I feel irritated or angry. I feel rushed because we need to get somewhere. I feel embarrassed if others are around, or something else. Your internal reaction is often the biggest lever for capacity, so I'd love to understand that part. For me, it is B. I feel irritated or angry. That's really helpful to know. When irritation or anger is the main okay, this is so much information. Okay, people, I'm going to, again, let you read this on the video screen. So please pause it and read through it yourself. I feel like I've gotten everything that I need out of this conversation. I liked the gears framework, but maybe I'll ask it to repeat those gears for me because I liked that. So I'm ready to wrap up. Can you review the 3 gears again? That was most helpful for me. Absolutely. It makes sense. 3 gears resonated. They're powerful because they reduce the pressure to every parent, every moment, the same way when your energy is limited. Okay, my brain is tired of reading. All right. And then I've got the 3 gears reiterated for me. Looks like they've kind of floofed them up just a little bit with goals added to them and little insights added at the end. I appreciate these. Let's see. If you'd like, we can explore one more thing that helps parents in your exact stage dramatically increase capacity. The 3 daily connection deposits that prevent many defiance battles before they start. Okay. Yes, I'd like to hear about those. All right. The morning you matter moment, the fill her cup play burst, the bedtime repair and reflection. Kids process their daily emotions right before sleep, so this helps settle their nervous system and reinforces connection after snuggles. Or after struggles. Okay. I mean, again, not coaching, more consulting, but it did help me solve the problem that I brought to it of if my capacity is out, how do I stay connected to my daughter? I love the gears framework that it gave me. I like these connection deposits that it offered to me kind of freely at the end. But I will say, like, no, I've got what I need. Thanks. I'm done with this coaching conversation. So now I'd love to pass it to you. What did you think of this AI coaching? Again, I don't call this coaching. This is a lot of talking at me, giving me frameworks. That is what consulting is. Did it help you in any way? Would you use something like this if you were feeling at capacity or if you're hitting kind of a roadblock in your parenting? I'm curious if you would want to use something like this. And if so, as I said, go to the link in the description that gives you access to this bot for free. And I'd love to hear from you about how it goes. I want to do a little training for my bot before I dive into what I want to work on right now. So here we go. Thank you. Now I'd like to start a new coaching conversation. Please keep the reflections minimal and focus on asking powerful and open-ended questions, being deeply curious and insightful, and partnering with genuine trust for me to get to the root of my obstacles so I can create new awareness. Remember to only ask one question at a time. I'd like to talk about my business and more specifically, my future vision and goals for my business. My thoughts are this. I just had a baby and am navigating the ups and downs of interrupted sleep. My capacity is not very reliable to launch some grand program right now. I also don't know if I am done having babies within the next year or so. So the idea of onboarding a bunch of new one-on-one clients seems daunting when I may have to account for another maternity leave. Right now, I am building my audience and my voice on social media through consistently posting and offering free downloads, podcasts, YouTube videos, and TikTok and Instagram Reels. I'm considering starting a paid Substack or a Patreon or something more insider access to my brain and ideas and tools. But that's obviously a small stream of revenue right now as the audience continues to grow. So what do I do? Do I plan a short program for later in the year? Do I build a retreat? Do I reverse engineer based on money? Do I just onboard one-on-one clients anyway? Do I keep marketing my alumni contentment creator circle to my already qualified clients without building any new leads? How do I decide what to build right now with this smaller capacity? If you imagined looking back 3 years from now, feeling deeply proud of how you navigated this season of motherhood and business, what would that version of you say you prioritized building during this period of lower capacity? Decent question. I believe in building my audience most right now. When you say build your audience, what does that audience ultimately enable for you? In other words, what future opportunities or type of business becomes possible once that audience exists? This is promising. I imagine broader types of content, more edited and refined than what I'm able to produce right now. I see paid and free communities I manage and a Discord with my quote raving fan clients or customers who I interact with and support. And in turn, they supply ideas for new videos, new tools, or new offerings. I could launch a course or a short mid-range coaching program or long high-ticket coaching program. I could fill my select one-on-one spots. I'd be free to create content and offerings, show up for my engaged community, and support my one-on-one clients, all while limiting my work to 25-ish hours a week so I can possibly homeschool my kids or at the very least be present and fulfilled mom. What type of audience would make that vision possible? Not just in size, but in who they are, what they care about, and why they keep coming back to you specifically. I really like this. I feel like it integrated my feedback really quickly about eliminating all the talking and trimming the fat and just really getting into the questions. So I'm vibing. The type of audience I imagine are people who are deeply self-reflective and curious, people who own online businesses, like a service or a product, who enjoy creating content for them as well. People who enjoy having an online community they can tap into, who become real friends and support them when it matters. People who care about having enriching marriages and fulfilling parenthoods at any age. And people who keep coming back to me specifically because they know they can be totally transparent and seen, receive the support they're looking for, feel belonging and creatively inspired, and gain value from showing up. It asked, if that is the exact audience you want to attract, which one problem or tension in their lives do you feel most uniquely equipped and most energized to help them navigate right now? The tension of being content versus pursuing change and growth. My people are often motivated by solving problems so they can look for or invent problems to have, which drives down their level of contentment. But when they are in the pursuit of growth in their business or witnessing positive change, they are happy. When growth and change stagnate, they become discontented. So, even if their lives are what they worked for, they don't feel happy and content for long. If that tension, contentment versus growth, is the central problem your audience faces, what kind of transformation would someone experience after spending meaningful time in your world? Not the format of the offer yet, just the shift in how they think, live, or lead their business and life. I am enjoying this and just along for the ride. So hopefully you are getting something out of this for yourself. Let's see. Deconstructing the beliefs or habits that keep leading to discontentment, as well as reinventing who they know themselves to be, what they truly want now, not what they used to want, and stepping back into their visionary role while remaining deeply present. They will have an outlet for them to bring their inner drama and fears to me and walk back into their lives with clarity and contentment and creative inspiration. When someone begins that transformation with you, moving from chronic discontentment towards passive contentment while still pursuing growth, what is the very first shift they typically need to experience before anything else can change? I feel like it's taken my advice a little bit too literally, and now it's not giving me any sort of reflection. It's just giving question after question after question, which is not bad in of itself, but I kind of want to know what it's noticing. So I'm going to ask. Before I answer, can you please offer a little bit of insight before each question? Just 1 to 3 sentences that reflects what you notice about my responses. I don't want paragraphs and bullet points of information, but just little seeds of awareness to plant as we go through this conversation. Let's see. I notice that your vision is already very clear at the transformational level. You can articulate the identity shift your people experience with you. That suggests your obstacle may not be what you do, but where the entry point into that transformation should be, especially in this lower capacity season. Here's the question. When someone first arrives in your world, what belief or pattern is most often keeping them stuck in that cycle of discontentment? I would say, and also you may notice this coaching conversation is going slightly differently than the other coaching conversations because I genuinely feel like it's inspiring me to think more deeply about the quandary that I have brought to this conversation. And it's getting out of my way with all of the words and information that it was kind of throwing at me all those other times. So I'm just in flow and I'm going with it. And I hope this is valuable to you. And then I'll give you some feedback about what I think it could do better in these questions next time. So when someone arrives in your world, what belief or pattern is most often keeping them stuck in that cycle of discontentment? I'd say it's a core fear of failing, which could let down their families, fear of succeeding, which could alienate people they love or make them too stressed to enjoy life, fear of losing a part of themselves, again, which could lead to people leaving them or becoming a version of themselves they've never owned before, fear of going backwards in life, like starting over, being imperfect, experiencing imbalance in their lives or relationships. They think they've tried it all and nothing has worked thus far, so they don't imagine things are changeable. Black and white thinking can hold back new possibilities. I noticed the fears you named are all about identity stability, not just business success. Your people aren't only afraid of outcomes, they're afraid of what change might do to who they are and who they belong to. Good point. So here's the next question. When someone in that state begins working with you, what is the first experience you create that helps them see their situation differently? Okay. We connect deeply to the ontological side of my work, that their lives are a reflection of who they are being. And when we strip away the patterns of behavior that are being driven by survival, protection, fear, or our feelings, and really connect to the true essence of someone, then they can see how much is possible to their lives simply by relating to themselves differently. When they see how much personal agency and power they have to access within them, then we work on refining their vision and desires, building the lives they actually desire. Their inner experience, their well-being, their relationships, their spirituality, their income and business structure, their time and routines, everything can be honed with intention and built for their unique vision. I notice that the core doorway into your work is ontological awareness, helping people see that their lives shift when who they are being shifts. That's a very powerful starting point, and it's also something that can be experienced in layers rather than requiring a large container right away. Here's the next question. What is the smallest, simplest way someone could experience that ontological shift with you without needing a big program or long-term commitment? That's exactly what I want to know. I would love to brainstorm that because I thought making videos that provide those perspective shifts would, but my videos are largely educational and the growth is slow in viewership. Is there a different style of content or delivery that I could try to introduce these concepts to them that still produces evergreen content? I noticed something interesting in what you just said. The core of your work is experiential, but the content you're making right now is mostly educational. That may be why the growth feels slow. People understand the ideas, but they may not yet feel the shift you create in conversation. Here's the next question. If someone could spend just 5 minutes with you and feel that ontological shift, not just understand it, what would happen during those 5 minutes? Okay, this is legitimately really helpful. They would come in asking a surface level question, like me right now, asking what I should do with my business while I'm in this awkward phase of life that creates starts and stops in my offerings. And they would experience a deep question that cracks open a whole new relationship to their life right now, or a whole new perspective on how they think. I noticed something consistent across this entire conversation. Your power is in the question that cracks someone open, not in the explanation afterward. True. But in the moment where someone suddenly sees their life differently because of how you ask the question. So here's the next question. If your audience came to recognize you as the person who asks the question that changes how they see their life, what format would most naturally showcase that ability? I've thought about filming myself, coaching my clients, or offering, quote, rapid coaching sessions that go straight to the heart of the way people think. I did that years ago and never posted any of the content. That's the scariest thing to share, in my opinion, because it's truly like the Oz behind the curtain. What if people don't get it or they don't think my coaching is good enough? Ooh, getting real with you people. I noticed that the idea that scares you most, letting people see your real coaching, is also the place where your true differentiation seems to live. The fear you named, what if they don't get it or it's not good enough, sounds very similar to the fears you described your audience having about being seen and stepping into a new identity. Hello? Here's the next question. If you knew with certainty that showing real coaching conversations would attract the exact audience you described, even if many people didn't understand it, what would stop you from sharing it? First, let me just interrupt this flow. Like, I'm in such a flow right now. Yeah, I don't have feedback right now because I'm so in this conversation. But what I would say is that by eliminating all of the stop and start talking at me, it's now actually feeling like a real conversation. And it is fairly facilitative in that, again, we didn't establish a coaching request and goal for the conversation, which again is just feedback that I will integrate into the bot itself after I finish filming this. But it seems to understand the general goal of where I'm going in this conversation. And it's really not just asking superficial questions. It's helping me understand what my desires and goals are in my business and what my clients ultimately need from me and where the intersection of those meet. So I'm vibing with this and I'm enjoying the questions and I have no notes. I would just need the time and space to carve out scheduling these forums and inviting the right people into them, marketing it, creating the container for it, retuning my skills in a way that I could jump right into the heart of things with a stranger in the first 5 minutes of speaking to them. I noticed that the obstacle you just named isn't actually fear anymore. You quickly moved into logistics and readiness. That suggests a part of you may already believe that this is the right decision. But another part is asking for structure and permission to start small. Here's the next question. What would the smallest possible version of rapid coaching container look like that would let you test this idea without requiring a lot of time, marketing, or preparation? Very simple facilitative question. It's asking me what's the smallest first step I could take? So I could open it to my alumni clients first, who know my coaching well, who would be happy to receive my coaching for free if I offered this as purely a content source and not a paid offering, and who I feel comfortable with right off the bat. I notice something important in what you just said. It's starting with I notice every time, which is not bad, but it is definitely in kind of a formula right now. But the fact that it's short reflections is fine with me. So I noticed something important in what you just said. You immediately identified a group of people who already trust you, understand your coaching, and would feel safe to start with. This suggests you may not want to build anything new to test this idea. You already have a ready-made proving ground. Fair. Here's the next question. If you ran a few of these rapid coaching sessions with your alumni purely as a creative experiment and content source, what outcome would tell you that this direction is worth continuing? I would say if people got great value out of it, if it didn't require a ton of my time or preparation, if I could do it for practice, quote unquote, and if it sucked, I wouldn't have to post it. I could just host another forum again and record it until I get some clips that really work. I noticed something subtle in your answer. You already designed a low-risk feedback loop for yourself. Practice, record, keep only what works, repeat. That's very aligned for the way creators develop strong signal over time. Cool. Here's the next question. If you committed to running this experiment for, say, the next 60 to 90 days, what personal rule would you set so that you could actually follow through and not overthink or abandon it midway? Okay, calling me out. Jeez Louise. All right. I might set up a structure where I limit myself to just 5 questions per person in the call so I don't get sucked into long coaching conversations I wouldn't want to post. Maybe just start with posting a coaching conversation once a week for 6 weeks, which would just require 6 people to start. And if I get more, then I can decide if I want to post more frequently or just build my library of content to post. I notice as you talk through this idea is becoming increasingly concrete and bounded. 5 questions, 6 conversations, 6 weeks. That kind of constraint often makes creative experiments much easier to actually execute. Facts. If you completed those 6 rapid coaching sessions and posted them, what would you be paying attention to in your audience's response that would tell you something meaningful about the direction of your business? Pretty basic. Viewership, retention, comments, subscribing. I noticed that the metrics you named, viewership, retention, comments, and subscribing, are all signals of resonance and curiosity, not immediate revenue. True. That aligns closely with the priority you named earlier, building the right audience first. So here's the next question. If those signals did increase because of these coaching clips, how might that change the kinds of offers or containers you would build later? Good question. Maybe I could build a forum style container down the line within my Patreon or something like that, where people could sign up and receive written or recorded content from me and or participate if they would like to receive actual coaching from me. A real community that actually meets in real time, but also allows for lurkers to enjoy the fruits of the content we discuss. I noticed that the container you're imagining, a forum where some people participate and others quietly observe, mirrors the dynamic of the coaching clips themselves. A few people in the conversation, many people benefiting from witnessing the shift. Meta. Here's the next question. If that future forum community is the natural destination for your audience, how might the coaching clips you create now function as the bridge that leads people into it? I should promote them to join it. I just don't know what platform is the right quote unquote one to host it and how much to charge for my monthly membership. I noticed the moment you started imagining the bridge to a community, your mind immediately jumps to platform and pricing. True. Those are important later, but they usually become clearer once the value and behavior of the audience start revealing themselves. Interesting. If you ignored platform and pricing for a moment, what experience would you want someone inside that future form to consistently have when they show up? They do not get overwhelmed by disorganization. Oh, I hate when you join like a Patreon or something and it's just like a big long feed with a million posts and videos and live streams and all of the different things all in one thing. And it's like you're walking in mid-conversation. Not a fan. If it feels like they just log in and see post after post of random videos or written posts or forum recordings, they are less likely to engage. I would want them to be able to go where they feel led, i.e. reading written content, going to a bingeable playlist of videos, watching long form recordings of live coachings, engaging in a chat room to meet other people, etc. I notice that the experience you're describing is intentional navigation, not just access to you. You're imagining a space where people can enter through the doorway that suits them, watching, reading, participating, and quietly observing. Here's the next question. If that organized experience is the end state of the community, what single doorway might someone enter through first when they discover you? Signing up for low-cost access to this portal, a very minimal fee for joining the community. I noticed that the doorway you're imagining is very accessible, a minimal fee and a clear entry point into your world. That suggests you're designing for curiosity and belonging first rather than exclusivity or high commitment. True. If the goal of that low-cost portal is to deepen connection with the right people, what would make someone feel within their first week that joining was absolutely worth it? Ooh, good question. I would say depends on their motivations. If some are curious about my more personal thoughts and process, they'll be able to have greater access to me through private video catalog. If they want more tools to access, I'd have an organized library for them to download right away. If they want community, they could show up for the next coaching forum or engage in a chat room with me or other members by introducing themselves. They'd gain value, feel seen, and experience belonging right away. I noticed that the value you described, access to your thinking, tools, and real-time conversation, already exists in pieces across the content and ideas you've mentioned. It sounds less like you need to invent something new and more like you're gradually assembling the ecosystem those pieces will live in. Given everything we've uncovered, what feels like the single most important thing for you to focus on building over the next 3 months? Okay, it's breaking me down into a bite-sized action step. Inviting my alumni clients in for free to be founding members of this community and serve as the guinea pigs for my rapid coaching clips to post online, and constructing this portal where this membership lives. I noticed that your focus has become very concrete and grounded in people you already trust, your alumni clients. That often creates a much more stable starting point than trying to build something new for strangers. Here's the next question. If you successfully invited your alumni in as founding members, what role would you want them to play in shaping this community as it grows? Easy. They could establish the culture of belonging, model how coaching works, get engagement started, and receive real value for themselves. I noticed something interesting in what you just said. The role you described for them, modeling the culture, engaging first, showing how the culture works, is exactly what strong founding members do in communities that eventually scale well. It sounds like you're intuitively designing for culture first, growth second. Fair. If those alumni truly became the culture setters of the space, what qualities or behaviors would you most want them to embody from the beginning? Showing up and engaging, bringing their vulnerability and real requests for support, offering feedback and suggestions for content / tools / ways to support them. I noticed the behaviors you want are all things that happen when people feel psychologically safe and genuinely valued, not just when they have access to content. What would you need to do or model early on to make it safe for people to show up with that level of openness engagement? I would say me consistently showing up as well, sharing my own personal thoughts, offering questions for prompting conversation. I notice that what you described is exactly the same mechanism that drives your coaching. The environment begins to reflect the tone and depth that you model. If this community began to mirror the depth and curiosity you bring to your coaching, how might participating in it change the way your members relate to their businesses and lives? That's the first question that I feel like doesn't add value for me. So I think I'm gonna redirect. That's taking me down a rabbit hole. I'd like some clear direction on where to host this platform and what first steps to take from here. I think I'm like saturated. I hear you. You've done a lot of deep thinking in this conversation. At this point, you're asking for clear direction and a next move, not for more exploration. Thank you. 2 quick insights before the practical steps. The structure you described, coaching clips to community to deeper offers, is actually a very coherent business model for someone whose differentiation is thinking and coaching. Cool. In this stage, the most important thing is speed of testing, not finding the perfect platform. So the goal is to pick something good enough, fast to launch, and easy to organize. Okay, so then they offer me some platform recommendations: Circle, Patreon, and School. I'm curious to hear from you in the comments if you've used any of these. I think its recommendation is Circle, and based on how it describes it here, it looks like a good fit, but I would be very curious. I know other people use Kajabi for community-based engagement platforms, so I'm curious to hear what you all recommend, but Circle seems pretty cool. It also talks about my steps. It gives me step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. It gives me a pricing structure, a big strategic insight. It says your real marketing engine isn't educational content. It's watching someone get coached by you. That is the moment people think, I want that. And that is what will attract your exact audience. One final question, not a coaching loop, a practical one. How does this plan feel in your body? Does it feel A, energizing, B, relieving, C, overwhelming, or D, still unclear? Your answer will tell us what adjustment you might need next. I say A. Thank you. All right. Okay. Now it's just recapping all the action steps for me. Okay. Let's pause, breathe, reflect. That was surprising. That was genuinely, I'm a little shook. I was not expecting to get so well supported in that conversation. I felt like I really did get what I wanted from it. I did come in feeling a little bit like it's just going to give me some surface level things again. Like the previous conversations gave me a little tools here and there, some frameworks to think about, but mostly the questions didn't go very deep. And maybe because this is more business coaching, I feel like these platforms may have more business coaching training. And granted, I say business coaching, but I really mean business consulting. Like there's more frameworks to draw from out there on the internet that may be informing the AI behind this that made this conversation more fruitful. But genuinely, I'm impressed. This was very helpful. It gave me a lot of insight onto the things that I want, the differentiators I have, the platforms and pricings, and gave me action steps to take that really feel doable and aligned and just helpful. So 10 out of 10 recommend using this bot for your own business brainstorming. I, again, am going to share the link in the comments that you can get it for free, or not in the comments, the link in the description for you to get for free. So go get access to it and brain dump your own questions about business. And I think you genuinely will get really good support out of it. And hopefully you can also bring other requests about marriage, parenthood, personal growth, any of the deeper, more personal topics. Hopefully my training will raise the level of impactfulness for what kind of coaching you receive. But regardless, I think anybody can get value out of using these tools because anybody gets value out of just talking through their own internal thoughts. So that seems to apply here with all of these different conversations I had today, from the creativity rut that I brought, the marriage and connection issue that I was having, the parenthood and really connecting to my kid when I'm at zero capacity, and then this business question. I did feel like I'm walking away with value on all levels. It's just, it definitely skews more high value in coaching me around business than it did around the personal stuff. So maybe I can do another video if you let me know if you liked this content. I can record another iteration of this using the upgraded technology next time. But as I said, I'm very curious to hear if you got value out of just listening to me be coached and how I respond to these prompts and how it responds to me. And if you got any value for yourself today, I would really, really invite your comments and reflections. And again, just encourage you to go to the link to get your own conversation going and see what you get out of this. And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode of the Contentment Creator Podcast, where we put AI to the test to see if a chatbot can coach a life coach. Whether you caught the whole episode or one of our segments, either way, thank you so much for making it all the way to the end, and I hope that you are subscribed so you don't miss another episode. Join me in my mission to turn a world full of content creators into a world of contentment creators. Bye, y'all. You want to be in the video? You want to be? Ooh. Well, I guess we'll have to work on this later today.